I've been working as a makeup artist mainly for the fashion market for almost 12 years. But it was in the last 4 or 5 years when I really started to have my work recognized and occupying space that were predominantly masculine before. This recognition came with the development of my original work, um, which consisted in criticizing the fashion and beauty industry, the femininity stereotypes, the beauty guidelines, and provoke a debate around the use of makeup. Although it sounds completely inconsistent, this work had a huge political expression motivation for me. And that was clear because the more visibility I had, the more I used it to promote those debates, including identity, politics, and theories. In 2014, I got persecuted online for the first time. I criticized a Brazilian male singer who said, "I can be everything, including a woman, if I want to." He was becoming a big LGBT symbol back then, and today he identifies himself like a trans woman. At the same period, I criticized a political party which was promoting lesbian debates led by a male who self-identified as a lesbian trans woman and who made cotton selling speeches recurrently. Um, I've been called freak dyke, male female, and got rape and death threats by queer and trans activists. They got my Facebook profile suspended for almost 6 days. Those harassments never stopped, and I never stopped to talk about those problematic questions too. However, it was on March 8th in 2019 when the cyber lynching happened. The International Women's Day posts were going on, and among them, a huge number of posts dedicated to trans women, most naming them as the real leaders of this day and this fight, reducing the cause, the fight, and all the political organization made by women who they named cisgender. I saw a lot of people questioning feminism and the HM validation because for those people, it is a date that celebrates pussy feminism, and consequently a cisgender and transphobic one. At this time, I was really mad, and so I saw an Instagram post where a male who identified himself as a trans woman was making a violent speech referring to women like people who have vagina and saying that the HM was not about this fuck female femininity. So thinking that I could express myself as those people did, I made a post on my stories saying basically that the HM was a day to remember the violence against women with a pussy and to remember that women with a pussy fight for emancipation, rights, and freedom or something like that. And I finished saying I'm not a fucking cisgender, I'm a woman. I'm sorry about the words, but I want to tell you exactly what I did and what happened. Um, my Instagram profile had 18K followers at the time, I think. And a lot of them are from the fashion market. Most women really interested in feminism or feminists, in fact. I didn't take so long until all the internet called me. The lynching was started by trans women from the fashion market and gay men who disputed workspace with me directly. They shared a print screen of my posts blurring the post word because it was triggering, I think is that triggering according to them. My stories were put down very quickly, and a post where I've explained why I was not being transphobic to talk about our material reality what put down to. I said it was totally fair that I answered all those misogynist publications made at the HM. So they said that I looked and spoke like a man. They start to demand my head on the fashion market, accused me of transphobia, and anyone who'd work or even talk to me uh, of transphobia too. They engaged people to on internet to push the national and international labels and magazines and all my potential customers and work partners squarely against me and ensure that we never will work with me again. Um, my manager called me to say that all my jobs had been concealed and he was being put under pressure, so he could no longer work with me anymore. All this happened among a lot of harassment and insults from random people on internet. So I started to get devastated because I was out of work without a manager during this uh, crisis moment. And I had two kids. I have two teenager kids. And I had an assistant who was out of work too because of me, and was 2 years dedicated to my career with too much effort, completely destroyed in a few minutes. But could get worse. Um, I wore my hair shaved for a long time, and I have this tattoo on my head which says, "Women have vaginas, not dresses." I made this tattoo exactly because I was really tired to people asking me if I am a trans man, just because I didn't have long hair or something like that. So they used a picture of my profile where the tattoo was quite visible and shared this, accusing me of transphobia and to be a neo-Nazi. This picture associating me to Nazism was widely shared, including by a famous LGBT profile and a supposed progressist newspaper called Media Ninja. Both totaled more than 1.5 million of followers. And here was when the things began really, really bad. Um, just on this day, I received almost 2K inbox message of only on Instagram. All of them with a lot of hate speech, awful harassment to me and my family. People talking about my kids, saying it was my fault if something bad happened with them. They say they know where we lived and attended. They were inflaming the people to commit violent acts against me, like burn me alive on the streets like a tire, or saying that I should be raped until death and that they wouldn't stop until finish with all my life. Um, so I was really bad at this moment, and it was 5 days without sleep, even for a minute. Uh, I've had a dissociative episode. I went into shock, went to the hospital, and started to take medicines. I stayed 2 weeks locked in my bedroom because I was afraid of my roommates, because I didn't know what they was thinking about it, and if they want to do something bad with me too. Was 3 months stuck at home, and when finally I tried to go out to go to the bakery, I was recognized and they screamed my name and called me transphobic, and I started to run straight to my house, and I tripped and was a nightmare. um, I was completely isolated for everything, even my closest friends, my supposed best friends, the girls who supposedly shared the same thoughts than me, my coworkers, everyone left me because no one could be associated with me. The only support that I had besides my partner was from radical feminists who organized themselves to help me, defending me, and pushing my ex-manager to help me. I couldn't live in that situation anymore, stuck at home, emotionally sick, and seeing my savings ending up. I didn't have any perspective, so I started to think about leaving the country. My manager was so happy with that idea that he offered me money to go, obviously, because I wouldn't be a problem anymore. Um, he committed himself to work on my international career, to start to work abroad, and to give me some financial help for a while. The first part never happened, and he stopped to help me with money 2 months before the term. We never talked again. I lived illegally in Spain for 7 months, working 14 hours a day every day until I decided to come back to Brazil because I couldn't stay away from my kids anymore. And I arrived in Brazil a few weeks before the quarantine, and I was working like an Uber driver until the lockdown. Even today, I receive offensive messages, and sometimes my name and those pictures come back to the internet. And I didn't recover any friends or professional relationships I've lost at the time, but nothing is worse than the damage to my integrity, my dignity, and my self-esteem. Nothing was more painful than when I realized my kids were doubting about my morals, my kindness, and my empathy. Um, Nothing was more terrifying to see them exposed to this huge violence. Um, is Nothing is so overwhelming like this Muslim. Nothing is worse than feeling our identity, our existence, our reality being stolen and murdered again and again, while we need to pay ourselves to announce these crimes. And this episode changed me completely, and I'm still trying to understand who I am after all. The transactivism violence has many faces in Brazil. Whether through pandering or moral and sexual incitement of kids, the infant hormonal and sterilization politics, the hormonal drugs contraband to young people, coercive invasion of women's safe space, lesbian agenda misappropriation and exposure to cotton sealing, feminism fights disarticulation, the anti-transphobia law that we have in Brazil is not being typified, which make us vulnerable to tendentious moral efforts with oppressive lobby. But clearly, through the violent muzzling against women who bring the light to the importance around the debate on identity theories. Like the Eugenia said, we know dozens of reports of women being censored on the academy for addressing this lobby. About 2 years ago, I think, my friend, a Brazilian woman artist, slum dweller, unwed mom, had her, I don't like this term unwed mom, but I don't say how to say that in English in another way. She had her art opening destroyed by trans activists, and they made her life hell because her artwork was about women, vaginas, and uteruses. A culture collective in Rio de Janeiro called Casa Nuvem had their space taken by force with a lot of violence by a famous trans woman and his partners who were accused of pandering in France. Now this space known by Casanem has a lot of accusations of sexual exploitation, including underage. This trans woman, who called Indianari, is recognized as a big LGBT icon in Brazil. We have in Brazil an official Transgender Visibility Day but the same right was denied from the lesbians. Are woman quotes created to include women on politics and in the academy are being occupied by men who identify themselves as women, and we can do or say nothing against that. And they can do all this because of the violence that they use to push in all the society to do whatever they want. Um, Last week, for example, was very hard for us. In the same week, a digital magazine sponsored by the state exposed human to lesbophobia. Besides transferring lesbian protagonism to a heterosexual man who identifies himself as a trans woman lesbian, they shared his text stating that woman who only engages in relationships with other women exclusively at not even lesbians, naming them genital lesbians and transphobics, how Bruna said to us a few minutes ago. Lesbians and allies responded to that, but were silenced by the magazine on social media and alleged of being in a position of privilege. Two queer militants promoted the cancellation of the Kiju Feminist, the magazine when Bruna works, and that is a platform produced and organized exclusively by diverse women committed to sharing and promoting safe information. And they promote this cancellation just because they gave opportunity and voice to those lesbians defend their cause. Yet this week, while a white man, known serial rapist called João de Deus, had an indulgence justified by the COVID spread, 100 gestants and 50 lactants are being held at prisons countrywide during the pandemics, even with habeas corpus on their favor. While those women are being dehumanized and have their rights violated, a white woman from the academy who worked in the pseudo-leftist media, having some social influence, promoted her critical thread of thoughts in which she marginalized what she calls the mom category and the mother's militancy. With a lot of linguistic and ideologic juggling, she used some fair feminist calls and criticism on compulsory motherhood and on the oppression suffered by women who have kids, mothers, defending and dehumanizing subcategorization of motherhood and the abolition of the word mother. And she stated categorically that the use of the term mom or mother is excludant and transphobic. Some of the main oppressions applied to women that developed to patriarchy are the forbiddance of auto-naming, the suppression of female sexual autonomy in favor of men, and motherhood rights extinction. Those oppressions have been used to subcategorize the feminine sex and the use of gender as a tool to promote this hierarchy. Thousands of years later, we see the same exact system serving the same purpose, taking away our humanity. It's urgent and important to make human understand that the patriarchy is not a distinct moment in history, but a living system who adapts itself to time, space, and cultures, serving the same Lord with the same agenda. The idea of gender is not new, is not innate, nor an identity. It was maliciously created and imposed at the man too for keeping the same philosophy, misogyny. Here in Brazil, just like worldwide, the queer politics are being handled like a pacific and united topic. Therefore, any individual or organization who opposes it will be attacking right humans and will be treated like a criminal and exposed to the massacre of the public opinion. It's like if you were being monitored by queer sentinels. Acting like a feminist, a gender critic, and woman and girls' right protection, or even like a woman in Brazil today, means drowning a target on your own back and leave you afraid under constant threat. The liberal totalitarianism is real, and the T of the LGBT is meant to.